As the U.S. China trade war continues to escalate, Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping held and presided over a symposium with private entrepreneurs in Beijing on February 17th. This marks the first high-level meeting between Xi and Chinese business leaders in 7 years. Similar to the last such meeting in 2018, this one also took place against the backdrop of trade tensions with the United States, under then-President Donald Trump. However, China's economic situation is now significantly more challenging than it was then. Among the entrepreneurs attending the meeting were Huawei founder Ren Zhengfei, Tencent chairman and CEO Pony Ma, and Xiaomi founder Lei Jun. Also present were newer industry figures such as DeepSeek founder Liang Wenfeng and Unitree Robotics founder Wang Xingxing. However, the most notable attendee was Alibaba founder Jack Ma, who had been absent from public view for years. Following the meeting, Jack Ma was among 3 entrepreneurs who shook hands with Xi Jinping. Observant netizens also noted that in a video aired on China Central Television's news broadcast, Xi could be heard asking Ma, "Are you doing well?" during their handshake. This brief exchange sparked widespread online discussion. Some speculated whether this signified reconciliation, noting that just 4 years ago, Xi Jinping nearly had Jack Ma imprisoned. Others questioned whether this indicated a broader rapprochement between the Chinese Communist Party and private enterprises, pointing out that many business figures remain in detention and that the government's recent emphasis on protecting private entrepreneurs' rights coincides with economic difficulties. Comments online reflected skepticism, with some stating that private entrepreneurs like Ma would not be deceived repeatedly, and referencing business tycoons such as Pan Shiyi and Li Ka-shing, who have already secured their assets abroad and are watching the sinking ship from afar. Jack Ma's attendance at this meeting sent shockwaves through the business community. Analysts also noted that while Ma was seated in the front row among executives, he was not given a speaking role. Additionally, state media reports did not mention him, leading to varied interpretations of his status at the event. Jack Ma was seated second from the left. Chinese entrepreneur Anna Wang, who resides in the United States, believes this positioning suggests he remains marginalized. Speaking to Radio Free Asia, she explained that in China, seating arrangements hold significant meaning. He argued that while Ma may have been symbolically rehabilitated, he has not been fully reinstated, as indicated by his placement at the side rather than the center. According to Wang, Ma is well aware of the CCP's methods. Jack Ma's fall from grace began in October 2020 when he publicly criticized China's financial regulatory system, calling it outdated and obstructive to innovation. His remarks were widely seen as a key factor that angered CCP leadership. Shortly afterward, the Chinese government intervened to halt the $34 billion initial public offering of Alibaba's financial arm, Ant Group. According to the Wall Street Journal, Xi Jinping himself was displeased with Ma's outspoken critique and directly ordered the IPO's suspension. Following the IPO's termination, Alibaba faced an anti-competition investigation and was fined 18.2 billion yuan, approximately $2.8 billion in April 2021. Marking the largest anti-competition fine in China's history. In January 2023, Ant Group announced a restructuring that stripped Ma of his controlling stake. 6 months later, the company was hit with another fine of over 7 billion yuan, around $1 billion. Amid this crackdown, Ma left China and resided primarily in Japan, occasionally appearing in Thailand and Spain. For over a year, he did not publicly set foot in China. His absence, combined with the collapse of multiple real estate firms and the arrest of Evergrande founder Xu Jiayin, severely damaged business confidence among private enterprises. Ma's retreat from the public eye not only marked a turning point in his personal trajectory, but also symbolized a major shift in China's private sector. Experts point out that private businesses in China face 3 major challenges: state-owned enterprises absorbing private firms, unpredictable regulatory enforcement, and systemic inequities. Now, as U.S. China trade tensions escalate once again, China, the world's second-largest economy, continues to struggle with a sluggish real estate market, weak consumer spending, and rising geopolitical tensions. According to a February 14th report by Nikkei Asia, China's State Administration of Foreign Exchange recorded a net inflow of just $4.5 billion in foreign investment in 2024, a 99% drop from its peak in 2021. This suggests a deteriorating investment environment as multinational companies accelerate their exodus from China across sectors ranging from high-tech industries to manufacturing and finance. Despite multiple efforts to revive the private sector, Beijing's authoritarian policies have left private enterprises wary. While smaller than state-owned enterprises, private businesses still account for over 60% of China's GDP and provide more than 80% of employment. What does this high-level symposium on private enterprises signify? The key takeaway from the meeting remains that no business can override the government. Xi Jinping seeks to mend relations with the private sector while simultaneously tightening control over it. His remarks, such as urging private entrepreneurs to embrace patriotism, focus on development, and operate lawfully, were coupled with a reaffirmation of the CCP's commitment to strengthening the state-owned economy. Xi's speech reflected the CCP's continued dominance over China's private sector. Fundamentally, there has been little change in the conditions facing private enterprises. The overarching message is that private firms must align with the CCP's directives and serve its political objectives. If businesses are not guided by market principles, but instead must obey government orders, can they still be considered private enterprises? This symposium has sparked widespread discussion, particularly among China's business community. Feng Chongyi, a Chinese scholar based in Australia, commented on X, stating, "Xi Jinping is a textbook authoritarian leader who wants to keep influential private firms under strict control, believing this ensures the security of both himself and the totalitarian state." The X account China-Japan Political and Economic Review also posted, saying, "If holding meetings could solve problems, China's private sector wouldn't be in this predicament. The real crisis isn't affecting these large corporations attending the symposium, but the countless small and medium-sized enterprises. Where are the government's policies and subsidies for them?" Notably, on February 18th, the day after the symposium, China's A-share market saw over 4,600 stocks decline. Shares of DeepSeek, which had been a hot topic in recent weeks, led the losses. All three major stock indices closed lower. Old Dominion University business professor Li Shaomin told Radio Free Asia that the symposium offered nothing new. Li noted that Xi Jinping's speech did not mention reform. He explained, "Reform used to be the CCP's magic bullet. Just mentioning it would excite the little pinks," another term for nationalistic Chinese. Reform was a broad term encompassing various policies, and no top CCP official would openly oppose it. But Xi's omission of a reform from his speech suggests he has realized that reform is no longer effective. Li assessed the meeting as a sign that the China model has reached its limit. He explained, "What is the China model? It is the national mobilization of resources to achieve goals, which was once China's advantage. However, the world is now increasingly critical of China's overcapacity, and the US has made it clear it will no longer rely on China. So what does China have left? Not much." This suggests the national mobilization model is at its end. Independent commentator Zhang Jie, who has a background in law and finance, noted that China's economy has struggled in recent years, despite government stimulus measures. He said, "The economy is performing poorly, which is widely acknowledged. After the pandemic, there was no expected rebound. Instead, the downturn continued. Xi is anxious, but even large-scale market interventions have failed to produce results." Zhang highlighted China's deflation crisis as a severe challenge. He said, "Inflation can be managed with price adjustments and short-term policies, but deflation lacks effective solutions. Restoring market confidence is crucial, yet difficult. Issues like unemployment and rising incidents of violent crime are, to some extent, linked to economic stagnation." Zhang argues that Xi's efforts to reassure private businesses are unlikely to succeed. He remarked, "China faces three major problems: uncertainty about its economic direction, insecurity among the elite, and a lack of hope among the general public. Without addressing these, economic recovery is impossible." Xi's shift from reform and opening up to prioritizing regime security is a key factor hurting China's economy. China's economic situation is more dire than during the previous U.S. China trade war, with private enterprises facing even greater difficulties. The impact of tariffs has been much harsher on private firms than on state-owned enterprises. Private enterprises drive China's economic and technological dynamism, leaving the Xi administration with little choice but to support them despite its broader constraints. But will this symposium boost confidence in the private sector? Political commentator Zhou Xiaohui wrote that the high-profile meeting with private entrepreneurs and renewed government pledges indicate the CCP is deeply concerned. He said, "Externally, there is pressure from Trump's policies, Internally, economic stagnation, high unemployment, and public discontent persist. The CCP leadership has few viable solutions, so it's once again turning to private enterprises, offering them some relief while also seeking to maintain public support. Zhou observed that CCP rhetoric remains unconvincing. No matter how often promises are repeated, without a free market, press freedom, transparent regulations, and officials free from corruption, private businesses cannot truly thrive. The government's unwillingness to abandon policies like public-private partnerships ensures that private enterprises will remain constrained. Both the CCP and seasoned private entrepreneurs understand this is just political theater. Private businesses that grow into large asset groups risk becoming a political threat to the CCP rule. If they gain enough influence, they could rival the party. This is why, in 2020, Xi Jinping ordered crackdowns on figures like Jack Ma, to ensure that party authority remains supreme. Since taking power in 2012, Xi has periodically warned against the disorderly expansion of private enterprises, and has exerted political and economic pressure on business leaders. In September 2018, financial analyst and blogger Wu Xiaoping wrote that China's private economy had completed its role in supporting the state-owned economy and should gradually withdraw. His statement caused a public outcry. That same year, the insurance conglomerate Anbang, which once had assets worth 2 trillion yuan, was taken over by the state. Debt-ridden H&A Group faced a similar fate. Meanwhile, foreign trade factories in the Pearl River Delta were hit hard by the U.S. China trade war. Fear spread among private business owners, and data confirmed their concerns. According to Nomura economist Guan Zhixiong, the profit share of SOEs increased from 22% in 2015 to 28% in 2018. That year, SOEs surpassed private firms in industrial value-added growth and profit share. A month after the exit theory controversy, Xi Jinping convened a symposium with private business leaders to reassure them. In November 2018, Xi delivered a high-profile speech at a private enterprise forum, pledging unwavering CCP support for the private sector. However, shortly thereafter, the government launched a series of crackdowns on private enterprises. Policies restricting real estate financing and dismantling the private education industry were enacted. The CCP also blocked private firms from accessing state bank funding and detained several prominent business leaders. This included Ren Zhiqiang, a princeling tycoon who called Xi Jinping a clown, and grassroots entrepreneur Sun Dawu, both sentenced to 18 years in prison. The CCP's distrust of private entrepreneurs stems from fears that they might organize politically or split the party. Consequently, the government has taken severe measures to suppress this group. Over the past decade, the persecution of private business leaders and the decline of private enterprise has largely been driven by Xi's regime insecurity. University of Hong Kong finance professor Chen Zhiwu believes that even if Jack Ma returns to the public sphere, lingering fears will not dissipate. He said, China's private enterprises are only valued when the CCP needs economic growth or stability. Chen concluded, once the economy stabilizes, private entrepreneurs will be discarded again. On February 11th, Jack Ma appeared at Alibaba's Xixi campus. Video footage showed him wearing a cotton vest featuring Alibaba's logo, smiling and waving to employees. Ma appeared to be in good spirits. Every public appearance by Jack Ma generates significant attention and often signals major developments at Alibaba. 2 days later, on February 13th, Alibaba chairman Joseph Tsai, speaking from Dubai, confirmed that Apple had chosen Alibaba as its partner to develop AI features for the Chinese version of the iPhone. This collaboration not only gives Alibaba access to over 200 million iOS users in China, but also signifies global recognition of its technological capabilities by a top-tier hardware giant. Additionally, Alibaba Cloud's flagship AI model, Qwen 2.5 Max, recently ranked 7th in a global blind test of AI models, making it the top-ranked Chinese model in the non-reasoning category. Ma's presence at Alibaba's campus may in some ways reflect the government's acknowledgement of Alibaba's achievements in artificial intelligence. However, overseas commentator Cai Shen-kun cautioned that Ma's high-profile return could be a double-edged sword, with potential risks that remain uncertain. He suggested that if Ma were to once again offend Beijing or Xi Jinping, he might find it difficult to leave the country in the future. Tsai remarked, I believe that during this process, Ma will likely adjust his holdings in Ant Group and Alibaba, potentially sidelining certain stakeholders while allowing new elites to take over or provide backing. However, China's political landscape is unpredictable, often shifting suddenly. Even if Xi Jinping's close allies have faced purges, whether Ma's current alignment with these so-called new elites will protect him or entangle him in future political shifts remain to be seen. For now, we can only watch and observe where Ma's next steps will lead him.